Hello! Well, look behind me, we've got Adam's 12 string set up as best as it can be, but it's actually pretty sweet. So that's going to get ready to go back to him. I guess Monday will be good, so I'll have the weekend to just tweak it and package it. But what we've got here is something I picked up last week on my way down for a creaky strap. Please ignore the creaky strap. On my way down for a short break down in Cornwall. Claire and I went for an overnight stay down in Falmouth and did a little bit of sailing. Anyway, so here we have Affinity Squier Telecaster in a bit of a grubby state, to be honest, but it's otherwise clean in terms of, you know, working parts. So slightly sticky, got some oil on it, which needs taking off and getting rid of. I've also cut my finger with a wood saw. Went up to my mum's in London and fitted up her hammock. Took a load of timber, didn't need it, brought it back, but I had to cut it in half to get it back because I was bringing a friend back. Anyway, put the saw in the back of the car and stuck my finger on it. I've already tweaked the action a bit on this, I think so. So it needs a little bit of fretwork to get it nice and low. But it's you know, it's a good old sounding telly. Very low frets to begin with. They're not particularly worn out or anything. They're just low to begin with. So. And guess what? Go that tune still. Sneeze. Hey, you, excuse me. So that's what happens if you don't stretch out your strings, even when they're old like this. Anyway, it works, and it's a very nice bargain. Squier Affinity Telecaster. What is there to note about it? Well, it's yeah, you see, I'm a bit busy, so I've got a busy weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday coming up. Yeah. So what have we got here? Affinity Squier, really straightforward, made in China, crafted in China. Maple neck, barely finished maple neck. It's kind of a very light finish. Thin-ish body, but nonetheless nice body. Yeah, a bit of buzzing going on somewhere. Yeah, but nothing, you know, good condition, no cracks or anything. A bit of a ding here and there, which I'm going to fill with my GluBoost stuff and a little bit of white paint, since I can, and I might as well. Standard Affinity Squier single coils. Controls, it's the bog standard stuff, 6 individual Strat style saddles and decent-ish quality tuners, and a metal string tree which I'll get rid of for a Tusq one. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with this guitar, and it was a bargain, so I'll be able to set this up and put it back out for a really good price, the same price even with my setup on it that you'd probably pay for a Affinity second hand anyway. So that's sort of bargain style. You know, if I get it cheap then I'm able to pass it on cheap. The frets do need a little bit of leveling, but they also need a little bit of tidying up, but that will be taken care of in the leveling. It's got a single ply scratch plate, which is okay. It's no real big deal. As I say, needs a clean up. Fingerboard's really filthy too, and it's a bit sticky. But what I'll do is I'll just get the setup part of it done. Now this has been, looks like it's been the nut has been well done, carefully done. In fact, the first fret action across here looks really quite low. And actually, for what it is, I wouldn't really probably need to do anything to that. But what I will just double check, it's got I think it's very flat at the moment. Yeah, a little bit of relief in it, but not a lot. It's not as flat as I thought, but it's absolutely spot on for where I'd want it. So there's no reason at all why not to just get straight into this. What I'll do is I'll just slack these off a bit, give myself a bit of room, and I'm going to mark the frets straight up and go straight into the fret leveling part of this, because I need to probably turn this around fairly quickly. Just a cash flow, you know, need a bit of money, cash, more than I need another Telecaster in the house. But it was a really nice find, and a local guy to me, a guy called Mark. So you know, it's a well kept guitar, well played. It looks like it's been enjoyed in its time. So I'll enjoy cleaning it all up and also doing those little fixes for fun. And it's really, to me, it's a bit more practicing with my GluBoost stuff, just to see how well I can get it, how seamless I can do a repair. And it's pretty good stuff. It was quite expensive, and I've got a few different not variants exactly, but I've got some different things I can try out. But the GluBoost stuff is a very good quality filler material that you can kind of do a combination of this super glue and this fill and repair stuff, and you can end up with a absolutely flush finish, which is really what you want when you're filling dings. You know, you want to get the repair pretty much blended back in. Now normally for a budget guitar like this, I'm not so precious about it that I would even care about dings on it. You know, I have to say dings just make character, but for someone like me who's just likes to learn bits and pieces, then it's absolutely perfect opportunity to give it a go and see if I can learn a bit more about the technique of getting it all sort of repairs finished as flawlessly as possible, because there will be times when that's really important. For example, on somebody's vintage old guitar that, you know, they need to sell on in a sort of perfect showroom sort of condition. Now I've got the first fret action the way I want it, and I've got the last I've got the relief the way I want it. What I don't know so much about is the last fret. I did it, I think, indoors by eye, and I'll get there in a second. Did it by eye, but it might as well just have a quick look by measurement. Now, this is very low at the moment, but it's also, I think, quite a flat radius, and I'm not exactly sure what the radius is. But we're going, yeah, it's a very low. Oh, blimey, that's a crazy low action actually. So I think I did it by eye, but we don't really want to. We don't want to start out by pushing it that hard. I mean, it's just a bit counterproductive. So I'm just getting a sort of a view on this to see if I can get it medium position. Yeah, so it's quite a long drive last night. I picked Mark up at Luton Airport? No, Stansted. Came back in from a walking trip in Spain. My pal Mark from Plymouth, and I happened to be in that area, so I kind of said, yeah, I can come and pick you up. So we went. I went there I left High Barnet at about 10 last night, and with a view of getting to going to Stansted at about 11, which I did, so all the timing was good. But when I got there, I realised I didn't know where you go to in a park. Dove, pigeon. Very low action, but hey, what the heck. Yeah, anyway, so I got to Stansted, and I was sort of in the dark, and it was 11 o'clock, and I was looking at the different things saying, you know, telling me where the different short stay car parks, and I didn't see it. I don't regularly or very often go to airports to pick people up, so I don't know what the form is. Anyway, so I got there, and it just became quickly apparent that my only option was to get to one of the short stays. It didn't seem to matter which one. Get to one of the short stays and go in there. So you come off the main sort of, I don't know what they call it, ring road that goes around the airport, and it's obvious you just got to swing off there and you pull in, and then suddenly you're on about a 50-foot road, 2-lane road facing 2 barriers going into car parks. And only when you get in there off this sort of perimeter ring roady thing does it become obvious that just to go inside and to pick up somebody was going to cost you £5.50. And I was like, what? Now I'm from down in the Cornish sticks, you know, we don't pay £5.50 for the privilege of picking someone up from an airport. So anyway, I sort of just halted at the barrier, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm not going through there. And then as I sort of stopped, I noticed there were 2 or 3 other cars a little bit further back on that bit of road, all with their hazards on. And I thought, okay, they're doing the same thing. They're holding off to the last possible moment so they don't end up paying 10 quid. So I thought, right, I'll do the same thing. And so I pulled in and sort of waited, and I ended up WhatsApping Mark to find out where he was and when he was coming through and stuff. And I was saying to him, can't believe it's £5.50. Just even if he came right up to the barrier, the only way I could get out was to go in, at which point I was due to pay the £5.50, and then you have to go through the car park and out the other way. So even though I wasn't even parking, even just picking him up right there and then, it would have cost us £5.50. So I'm fuming by this time. And so anyway, he came out, and I spoke to him on the phone, and I could see him down the end of one of the rows of cars, and I said, right, guided him up to where I was, and he jumped over into the thing, and we decided, right, what we're going to do. He went down to the entrance and stopped the traffic coming in. There wasn't much anyway, but he stopped whatever cars were coming into the car parking lanes, and I backed out of there and did a runner. He got in, and yeah, off we went without paying a penny, not even £5.50 for the privilege. But what cynical swines that is. I mean, I can't believe it. £5.50 just to go inside the barrier and come out. And 10 quid if it was longer than 30 minutes. And of course, if you don't know exactly when someone's coming in and you're tempted to just sort of go straight in and park up, and then suddenly it's half an hour and it's 32 minutes, and oh, it's a tenner, a good old tenner gone just like that. I think in no way am I paying that kind of money for any of this crap. And of course there is nowhere else in the whole airport where you can actually go and collect somebody, even if they're ready to come out. You know, they're already out and you've left it a good time, you know, so you're not holding anyone up. You cannot go anywhere to just pick them up. So it's literally is a tax for collecting somebody, minimum £5.50. I just thought that's really cynical, and So it was a great thrill to have beaten the system. So we drove off, you know, giving it the good old Anglo-Saxon greeting as we went. Hail UK British Airports Authorities, or whatever you call. Anyway, so for the fun of picking Mark up meant I got dropped in back in Plymouth at 5 AM, and I got back home at 5:30 in Tavistock. So it was a long night. That's because the M25 was shut in places, and so was the M4, and we ended up being detoured and shoved around, and ended up coming down the M3 and the A303 down to the West Country, which is not a bad road anyway, on any day. So you can see a lot of uneven frets up here and a couple of really bad ones down here too. But we've, you know, got a really low action set, so this is tidying up the fret wear. That's rocking a bit. But yeah, it's going to play really well. These things they're not bad saddles, but these kinds of bridges always run the risk of rattling slightly somewhere. I guess any bridges do. Never as much as a Tune-o-matic bridge, I'm happy to say, but they always can. Anyway, other news on the guitar making front. I placed the order for the new neck for Nick's Coacaster. I've got to drop him an email to let him know that, but I reordered that, and you'll wince to know it was about $550 US, and plus post, 500, nearly 600 including postage, and then on top of that, of course, there's going to be duty to pay when it comes in, so it's going to be a whacking cost. I think I'll obviously cover the cost of losing the original neck, and thankfully the original neck was I think it was an off-the-shelf one. So I think I won't lose too much in the end, and I'll probably find a way to reuse it for another personal project or whatever, but because I don't think I could, it's not a sellable one now, but I could certainly make it play, and I'll make another headless guitar for myself at some point. But yeah, so it was like getting the credit card out at the point of booking. I can't believe that you can spend nearly $600 US on a guitar neck, you know. When I'm enjoying more than anything grabbing an old £10 one and upcycling it. I guess there's a lot of, you know, there's time and care that goes into it, but you know, even still, nearly $600. That's a lot of money. Anyhow, it's on its way. I've got the alternative, the small low profile headpiece as well to go with it. So we're doing making sure this time it's a neck exiting truss rod fitting, or they call it a vintage modern. I suppose it's pretty much more vintage than modern really, but anyway, so that's a little bit of a custom job, so that on this one the truss rod will be adjustable at the headstock end, but it needs a different hip shot headpiece, so I've had to buy another one of those, which means I've got the original one to keep and reuse. But again, that will go with something I can do for my own purposes. And I think I have an option now to if I take this original wangy neck, I can either fill the hole that I originally drilled and use it in a completely new body and make a different set of positions for the neck bolts, or potentially I could possibly reuse it in a body I've got down there, which is waiting for a neck. So I've got a few options to do, but I think I'll probably leave it for a completely new build, because this is a bit low now. And it's out of tune. But to me, that will do. That's all I want to do on this guitar, in terms of fret leveling anyway. So I'm going to take these strings off because they've done their job, while they're off, I'll clean everything up, and I'll take, basically I'm going to take everything apart, well, most things apart. I'm just going to look, these are twisted around and locked off or something. So yeah, I'll get the neck off. We can either, oh blimey, do without little locked things. Is it John Bruce down in Cambourne made a post the other day on Facebook saying, please for God's sake don't do little locking things on your tuners, because it only means that someone like us has to go and dig them out, and the more you have to dig them out like this, the more chance the more chance you stand of damaging the damn things. You know, it's just a silly thing. Now, I don't know what you can see from there. Sorry, it's not a very good view. But yeah, so this is what you have to do when you've got them locked off, and it becomes more fiddle. I suppose you could argue that if you lock them off, and you can potentially get away with an absolute minimum of wind on, which, if you're conscious about your tuning stability, then I would agree that that's as little amount of winding on to trap slack as possible. But then it isn't what they've done, because they haven't stretched out the strings sufficiently anyway. So there's no point doing this tying on thing if you don't stretch the strings out, because basically you're kind of showing that you think the reason strings go out of tune is because they slip out of the groove, and actually it isn't that. They go out of tune because you've got either a dodgy nut, dodgily cut nut, or you've got slack in your strings. Very occasionally, if you do put, I mean literally, if on the wound strings like this, if you put almost no windings on, you physically can pull them off. That's true, and you know, in extremis, it's true that is can have an effect on tuning, but it's the least likely thing. You know, as long as you've got enough to wind them on, then it's not going to be that's coming off. It's just it's a misconception. It's almost always. I don't know why I thought that was a through body stringing there. You see how I picked that up to pull the strings out the back, and they don't come out the back. A lot of different opinions. You go online and there's a lot of mythology about through body stringing, and you know, if you listen to the so-called experts, or the experts, or listen to the voices online, everybody would tell you that through body stringing is supposed to be fantastic for sustain. Well, actually I go with the Scott Grove school of physics and logic, and that says through body right, hang on before I do that. Through body stringing is actually increases the length of string behind the bridge, which actually has a consequential impact, or a negative impact, on sustain, because the more string there is behind the nut, or even behind the saddle and tassels and the nut, the more string there is, the less decent the sustain will be. So it's quite difficult to clean a fingerboard, maple fingerboard like this, particularly if you've used some marker pen, because as soon as it gets a bit wet it tends to want to come off. Now, on some of these I haven't quite got the wear out of all of these frets down at this, right at the end here, where the fret hasn't been tall enough to get brought into the leveling process. It's actually a little bit lower than everything else, so it's kind of missed out. But that's not a problem, because removing the play wear is a sort of secondary thing, really. It's certainly not bad enough to warrant it being a primary objective. So it's definitely not something to worry about. Okay, so just as a quick kind of clean up, to do this, the dings on this guitar are all on either the side or the edge, so technically speaking I could do those repairs with the guitar you know, all together like this, so there's no real set need to pull it apart. So it does a load of gunge on this neck. Oh, I have to say it's pretty minging up here. Let's see if I can get most of it off. So in a way the precision bit of the fret leveling, even though it was very casually done, is done. And I could really just redo these, get them all crowned off and polished out, crowned off and sanded out, and then we could sort of restring and play. But obviously I will spend a little bit of time doing, a little bit more time doing the body repairs. That was part of the fun of trying it out on this. So meantime, while I'm at it, just going to give this fingerboard a bit more of a scrub, clear off some more of this goo. It's not too badly baked in, I have to say, but it is there from a few years of good playing. This is always a good sign. It's being enjoyed and used, which is what it's meant to have been done to it. And I will obviously, right now, I will use another bit of, or some more marker pen to crown the frets, reshape the frets, or reprofile them. So there will be a bit more to clean off in a minute, but getting sort of most of the goo, grime out of the way first. I might slightly widen these nut slots with, there didn't seem to be any problems when I was tuning up, but I'll widen them anyway with my V file, just to make sure that there's no grabbing as we go down. And I'll get rid of this tuner string tree as well, which I don't like. A guitar like this, even a Squier Affinity, absolutely deserves a Tusq string tree to minimise the amount of detuning that goes on, which can be quite a lot. So this is back. This is cleaned up now. Most of the grime is gone out of that edge of the fingerboard there, but it was pretty mucky. And then it's probably worth, while I'm at it, just give it a once over here. Got some goo on the steel plate that should come off. Bit of a rub. But yeah, it's in good nick, and you can always tell that because it's got no cracks in the neck pocket, which is always a good sign. I'll probably take these strap buttons out and put felts on because they don't have any, or what they have is either minimal or squashed out of existence. So I've got plenty of nice new felts. Now the reason I'm just giving the surface a clean off with this naphtha is because just might as well start with it being clean before we do any repairs on it. Yes, you can see it's a really nice condition guitar. Really good. All right. Well, I'll probably just finish that off. Oh well, no, I'll do the quick bit of reprofiling, and then I will be done. So I'll try and keep this right on the top. It's a soft marker pen, so it's not that obliging. It wants to kind of roll down the sides, and these aren't very tall frets, so I have to be a little bit careful not to run into the maple, because that's more of a pain getting out. I mean, if you're not confident in your marker pen work, then you may want to do the masking off before you do the pen work. Makes perfectly good sense. Okay, so and these are just pretty low, and they're not really jumbo, so I'm going to go with a medium file edge. Now, some of these have gone, well, done a fair bit of flattening on a couple of them, so you'll take a little bit longer on those to reprofile them in certain spots more than others. But it's still a fairly brisk process, and particularly when you use this tool, you can see where the dimples and little ruts and troughs are on your frets from playing wear, you know, when you're playing what they call the cowboy chords, I suppose. Such a derogatory I don't know why, it seems like a derogatory expression. You know, there's real guitar playing and then there's cowboy chord playing, and I think we should cast that off and not use that expression. The open chords is the expression I prefer. Because there's some sort of snobbery that if you don't know all the different chord inversions or whatever they're called, or as I understand it, chords played in different parts of the neck, then you're some kind of, you're not as good as somebody who does. I just think that's a bit, it's not very inclusive, you know, when people talk like that. Now this is what happens, this is what I don't like, we tend to get the bloody stuff runs off. If we're not careful, it runs off onto the... That's probably why I should have papered it off myself. But... Okay, so the alternatives, you get it like that, and you do it yourself and move it along and clean it. Fool, should have papered it off. Got caught out there this way the other day, which is very silly. So you can see as soon as you got it on the cloth, it's going to come off onto the board. So the best you can do is just get it off in a straight line first and then go back and clean up a bit afterwards. But you can see it's a bit pain in the... So the time... didn't finish that sentence. Any time you saved by not taping it first, you just lost by having to clean up each of these things individually, and then going back and cleaning up any overspill. So there is no easy way out of this. Somebody, I've forgotten who now, but somebody asked me the other day on a post, is there any way to avoid masking off all the frets? And it's like, that's the holy grail, you know. No, there isn't any easy way. You know, it's either a strip fret protector thing, or you mask them off, or you get the fingerboard dirty like I've just done. You know, so there's no simple way. And if somebody had found such a way, you know, we would be doing it. I mean, there may be some clever, innovative tool that somebody's come up with, but you know, you can rest assured that if you've done something, if you see that I've done masking the thing off 600 times on videos, then it's probably either become really stupid and haven't thought of the alternative, or there isn't an easily thought out alternative to just grab at. So it is a bit of a holy grail. It would be lovely not to go through the hassle of cutting bits of masking tape left, right and centre, but frankly you've got to do it, otherwise you end up with a muck on the maple or whatever, and you have to clean it off like I'm having to do now. The hard way. Okay, so this will get most of the grime, most of the pen. The pen is really useful, and that last bit, it's very hard to do it without the marker pen as your guide. You could probably find some other sort of substance that might coat the top, or like something that a dentist uses to check where your fillings have been, you know, where they're biting together. Yeah. Right. You come to tell me to stop, did you?
No.
Yeah. Okay. Headaches. Well, I think I will stop now. I've done Adam's.
Oh, that's nice.
Choirs of heaven are ascending us. Actually, no. What I'll do is.
You got the colour good.
Yeah, it's not underneath the what's the word I'm looking for? The shellac isn't perfectly smooth underneath the clear coat, but it's got a little bit of texture to it.
Yeah, I like it.
It's like what's that wallpaper that you used to have with this texture on it?
Glitter.
Yeah, something like that. Was it?
Hessian.
No. Yeah, there was a kind. Oh, or Artex. Or, yeah, anyway, it's a bit like. Sorry, Adam,
like
it's
that.
not Artex. Anyway, maybe what I'll do is before I come in and make myself a cup of tea, I think I'll put the tape on here, and then I'll be done for today. Alright, see you in a little bit. I'll be in.
That's better looking, clean.
Yeah.
Clean everything.
Yes, it was a bit mucky. Yep, right, let's get this done. And I'll go off camera to do this because this is you've seen it before, you know what it's all about. It's all about just masking it off. I need to go and get some more tape this weekend. Yeah, getting it all masked off, and then I've got to get my board out and cut a load of little strips that fit all the way down. But yeah, this is going to be a nice guitar when finished. We'll have a super low action for Telecaster, partly because it's not a super tight radius. I think you're probably going to find this is. I had a Squier Telecaster with a massive radius once, so that's yeah, it's 12. Yeah, it's about 12. So it's not usual restrictive 9.5 or 7.25. It's it's good and wide. So you, with that sort of 12-inch radius, you should be able to get a good low action. And I think that's it's going to be super low on this. But may raise it a tiny bit back up because I've just set it hugely low to begin with. Right, so anyway, I'll get off and go into my cutting up paper mode, and I'll see you later. Well, I say I'll switch it off. It's always that way. You press the thing and it doesn't go off. Press the thing, it goes off. Okay, I'm just finishing off Duncan's neck. There was a what do you call it? I don't know what you call it really. There was a hole that where there was a stripped stud, or like a screw broken off. So I've filled that basically, and I'm just going to let that set and then cut that or sand that back or chisel that back to flat. But apart from that, that's that done. And then down here we've got the Telecaster fret leveled and ready to polish out tomorrow. Yeah, and I'll be ready to list. So that's pretty cool. Okay, so we've levelled the frets, polished them out, cleaned it up, and polished most of the dust out, although there's always a little bit left kicking about. And going to restring it now and get on and play it. Although I don't know, I'm tempted to do the repair thing. I suppose I technically could start doing it now. It's mostly on the back and the sides. A couple of very small dings there. I sort of was preferring to do that inside, so maybe I will still. Get rid of that little bit of green pen. Gone. So I guess in all of these, a start point, in all of these repairs, a start point would be a little bit of paint to cover the colours, which I have actually out here as opposed to out there. So technically speaking, if I were to do that now, that would probably make more sense. The thing about these little dings is they're probably not worth filling in the technical way, because there's probably not enough depth to them. So we have a couple of different colours. It's kind of difficult to know which is which. I'll tell you what, let's go the whole hog since we're at it. Oh yes, felt. Strap lock felts. Let's see if there's any, what do you call them, sticky up things, shims. So this has got 2013, I don't know, it hasn't got, doesn't really say when actually. You'll probably work it out from the serial number. SGE 9013, which could be 13, but then there's 11, 10, 1109, 21, no, who knows, something with OC, possibly oct, I don't know. I'm not that interested. People get really hung up about finding out the serial numbers, but frankly I couldn't care less. Alright, so what I wanted to do was put some strap felts on, since we've got loads kicking around. Now I can't remember where they went. Strap button felt. So what I'll do for now is I'll just try and part of the reason I took the neck off anyway is to allow me to do a little colour test on a bit of, well, I'll probably need to take, in fact I'll take a pick guard off for that, but yeah, we can do a little colour test just for fun. But like I sort of mentioned before, really, I'm really not that bothered about little dings like this. They're really nothing worth getting upset about. So I'd be quite happy to leave them and just get on and play this thing. But since we got it here, yeah, that's a nicer extra thick felt. Since we've got it here and we've got the fixie stuff and some paint, we might as well have a go at see what's what. Quite a few, when you look close, there's a few little things here and there, but again they're minor, and all in all it's a generally very good condition guitar. It's ready to restring, having done the frets. It's also got one of these jack sockets, which is way better than the other stuff that they often come with. These, or the older Telecasters have that awful jack socket that kind of grips the hole with some little fangs. It's terrible, really. I'm just going to lift this up so I can have a look at the colour matching, and of course I can do that on a bit of paint that isn't going to match. I could do it actually behind the the screw plate, but I just also want to just check the seating of this thing. Let's see how it's attached in here. Okay, there you can see it's a fairly clean condition behind there. Let's get rid of some of that grime that builds up. Easy enough to remove. It's all in very good condition. Hardly any discoloration, which sort of shows you how it's not that old, or it's not been used that much or left out in the sun to discolour. Yeah, all in good shape. So, like I say, we could try things out on any spot here. The other thing is, if this pickup is slightly reduced down, both pickups are actually slightly down on the bass side, which I'll leave as is, because that's often a as is factory setting for Telecasters in my experience. I could be wrong, but tends to tame some of the bass and leave the sort of the guitar more equipped in the treble department, which is, I think, what people think is more characteristic of a Tele. Okay, so we've got two kind of whites here. One is called Vintage. Actually, they're both called Vintage Cream. I have got another one somewhere as well, but they're two different manufacturers as Vintage Cream, and this one's looking a little bit old. But beneath the yellowing bit, we have a little bit there like that. And if you just look at that, it's actually a very good match. Don't forget, the inside is a fraction lighter than the outside, which is weathered a bit. This one, quite difficult to use because it's got such a thick brush and it sort of blurbs everywhere. But in the same way, they're very, very close. The first one actually just is a little bit closer to the colour, so very handy to have. I've got a tiny brush anywhere. For fun, I could use a little stick to move it around, and obviously that then not quite the same as painting it on, but you can spread it a little thinner and get a sense of which colour's what. Now for doing a repair, obviously what you're really looking to do is fill, you want to fill the colour where it's missing, if there's colour missing, otherwise you're constantly going to be, it'll be visible. But you want to do it in such a way that you don't use tons of paint so it sticks out miles and makes a really proud blob, because you're only going to have to cut that back at some point in order to put any clear over it. And ideally, it's a bit difficult, because if you think about it, usually what happens when you get a ding is it presses in the finish. Sometimes it presses in so hard that a bit falls out, and then you've got a hole. Right, so just looking at that, I can basically wipe that away. I don't have to leave that there, but I'm going to use the first colour, and that's a nice little simple test. It doesn't really matter whether I get it all up, but as it happens I can. So I'm just going to put these quickly back on, and then we'll get to work on the dings on the back. Okay, so go over and look at what we've got. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dings in total, and pretty much all around the sort of bottom side of this thing. So it all depends. If I want to take care of the edge stuff first, I could I could take care of all of these top ones first, and when they're dry I can move on to the one on the bottom. So just going to get it to stand up comfortably so it's not going to go anywhere. Again, it's not very easy for you to see. Rip. Right. There you are. Not perfect. So I'm going to change my spectacles. Now, of course, if you do lash on too much, you can always come back later and cut it back with a blade and careful scraping. So it's not the end of the world, but we might as well try and get as little as we possibly can onto here to do the job. So I sort of blobbed a bit in both cases, quite thick. It's very, very sticky. I could thin this stuff with cellulose thinners, but I'm not really sure I want to be doing that. What I will try to do now in a minute, it's just while it's dry, while it's still dry, just try and spread it out where I want it with the cocktail stick of some kind. Now this is, where's the blob I need? Come on. Come on. And then one down here. And hopefully this will be nearly not far off it for the colour, because the colour, the purpose of the colour really is just to cover up, and then with a bit of luck we should be able to make it stronger by putting on some of this hardening stuff. Okay, so with my zoomed in glasses and my cocktail stick, hopefully removing any too much excess, and then sort of hoping that the remainder will settle or flatten out a bit as it dries. The problem with colour is if you sort of apply colour and then you try, in my experience, when you try to then flatten that out with a blade or a sandpaper or anything, what you tend to find is you before we know it, you're through the colour again to the other side, or to the dark underlying bit. So I think my experience says that it's better to get a very thin layer of colour on first, in such a way that it makes the obvious ding go away, and then I think I have a bit of, let's try this with a little bit of paper. Yeah, and then you can try filling over the top of that, and that is where you can let it overflow, and then you'll come back a bit later and then use the sort of flatting back technique. Now I'm using a bit of paper here to try and just flat out this bit of colour I put on here. I'm sort of dragging over the top of the paint cellulose that I put on there. That's nearly there, but it's not quite. My aim is just to use something to flat this out a bit. Now if it dries and sinks into those craters a bit more than it currently has, then I've got an option to maybe add a little more if I wanted to fill out some more, but I would rather be filling with filling with the GluBoost filler stuff than to be filling with paint. Now you can see if this one overruns a little bit, we can try and just kind of clear back up. See how I've exposed a tiny bit of the what's the word I'm looking for? Colour again. Now if that happens, I can get a bit of this white stuff again. And actually, if I don't like using it on the edge of with the brush, I can sort of get it all mixed so it's all one colour. Get a bit of a blob out here on the paper, and then work off this piece of paper with a cocktail stick or a toothpick, whatsoever. So it gives me a much more careful, I'm still not trembling, much more careful application. But you know, it is very hard to get it smooth at this point. Now you could argue that it might be worth, once this first sort of bit is on and you're confident you've covered up the colour, it might be worth getting a bit of this and mixing it up with some thinners, because that will give you a better filling mixture. You know, it'll settle into a smooth mix much more easily. So let's see how this dries out. last bit over here. There's probably some other better tried and tested way of doing this, but I don't know. I'm just trying to make these things less visible. But again, it's not important. I mean, it's not critical for this being a great playing guitar, so I don't mind if it doesn't work perfectly. I'm just practicing. Okay, so that really needs to be left overnight. And while I'm at it, I probably could do, if I just remember where things are, that's always a good thing. Let's put a bit of tape on. Otherwise, it's all too easy to forget where you put things. Now, actually, having some tape around this actually comes in quite handy a bit later on when you come to polish out, because as part of the sanding out process you have to be very careful to kind of sand and move and widen your area of repair enough to blend it in before you end up at the sort of final buffing out stage. So you start with a very small area, and then before you know it you're working outwards from there. Identify the areas. It'd be nice if you could just sort of cut it across. There's a sort of trick you can do, or technique you can do with a blade, and a sort of burnished blade. So you get a craft blade and you kind of burnish it by bending back an edge, and then supporting it with a bit of tape, so that you basically just, it's a bit like a scraper that only just lifts the top surface, and that's quite cool, but it's quite difficult to do when you, in fact it's impossible to do when something sits, the repair sits on the edge of a piece of finish. Anyway, so I'm just marking these up so I have an idea where they are, and I can sort of help myself a bit by going, there's one. There's another. There's one. And here's one. So many times I've done this and then just going to put my finger right into wherever it is I did the repair, which can be extremely frustrating. So while we're at it, in terms of drying time, everything else is pretty much going to stay in place. We've got a ding here back to the wood. Very thin finish anyway, so it doesn't take much. Let's just see if I can load this enough to hide the colour. And then being very careful. Now this will probably polish out, so I don't want to colour that bit. But I'm now just trying to work the pigment into the damaged area so it fills as much as possible and gets some purchase on the frazzled edges of this finish. But yeah, it's the best repairs, I have to say, tend to be the ones that I don't paint, because the GluBoost stuff does a really good job of filling, and then you sort of fix it, freeze it with the hardening, or the, what's it called, the accelerator. It's a kind of a super glue with accelerator. And as a result, you just get this, you end up with maybe a visible ding, but it's filled perfectly flush, and then you can sand it right back to flush with the actual finish. Something like this, what you find is, even if this dries hard, which will take quite some time, what you find is that it's almost impossible. The best you can do is get it nearly flat, and what you then doesn't leave you any room to fill with GluBoosty stuff on top. So there's a couple of different ways. You can either fill the dings and polish them out where you can still see them, but they're kind of flush with the surface. And if it's just crushed and hasn't gone through the paint layer, that's fine, because you just it just brings it back flush with the rest of the finish. If it has gone through the paint layer and there's a visible colour like that, then you're stuck. Now, you might think, well, look, but while I'm at it, why can't I try and remove, say for example, let's take out the excess colour here. All right, that's not a bad attempt. You get a bit of a scrape through, and you can take out quite a lot of the colour that isn't needed. Obviously there's a bit of bleed over or spill over, and if you're very careful you can kind of clean around there. Now that, looking at it, that will probably dry in a little bit and leave us with a sort of concave shape into which we can put our finishing stuff, which will then make the hard shell, which we can then flatten back with sanding and buff out. So that's kind of ideal, but it's so much easier than the ones on the side, which are they're going to try and stand proud. But you can see that as soon as you take away the colour like this, you do get some of the original colour bleeding through. Like I said, an option would be to get a little mixing. Let's get something like this and do a mixing thing. And this is the way of making it a little bit thinner. It might melt the plastic of the pot as well, so who knows. So shove that in there. This is very unscientific. Obviously it's thinned down now compared to what it was. Now we've got a much thinner mixture. It's a cellulose thinner, so it's doing exactly what it was supposed to do. If this just comes through and starts dripping onto the side, we know we've gone too far. So now what I can do is stir this a bit more. We've got a much thinner lacquer overall. I can shove this back in. A little bit of thinners won't hurt going back into there. Now, with our what we'll do, since we're hoping to trust in some gravity here, we can give this a bit of a fair support, sort of vaguely level, and then use a little bit of this incredibly thin stuff, and I can't even get it to stick, hold on to the thing. Okay, there we go. So that's now much runnier, and we're dropping that into the crack, and this is now spreading out. Now there's a lot more of the thinners obviously to evaporate at this point, so while it will fill everything better, it's also going to eventually evaporate, and with a bit of luck it will end up evaporating and leaving us a concave shape. Fantastic. Okay, there we are. So that I'll just place that somewhere propped up out of the way. I'll move something else first. I'll move my T shape, which is something I've just been messing around with some little fills to take care of some little gaps and whatnot. So this can sit down there, dry out. So this is going to go under in the hideaway place. Like I say, hopefully that will sink down and we'll be able to put some filler GluBoost and stuff on top of that. Now the edge ones I may not even redo with the GluBoost, I may just leave them painted and call that done. Now this actually doesn't really want to sit straight one way or another. Feel. Yeah. Okay, now I can see a bit closer. Let me just do something else. Come on, lift it up. Get on the stick. That's too much now. That's what I don't want to do. Okay, well we should be able to scrape the excess off later on. Right. That's my little paint done. Leave that dry out. Can go on there. What's this? Activator, that's my special stuff. And we will call that done for a minute, and we'll come back to put the neck on and refinish it. But once that's dry, I'll take it inside and do the GluBoosty bit over the weekend, and then later on in the weekend put the neck back on. By the way, I've put a Tusq string tree on there already, which is an infinitely better solution than the horrible metal thing that was on there, which had to go. Which will go into a pile of things that I kind of keep but I'll never use again. Once you know that something isn't a good idea, no matter how budgety sometimes you want to make something, depending on the purpose, you just, if you're like me, you never end up putting a piece of equipment you know is substandard back onto something, because you just defeats the object. Okay, and I could give those frets another clean through because they've still got a little bit of pen on them. Okay, so that out of the way. So that's the stuff done for the time being. We'll put the Squier. Where will I put those? Let's tie these up together so I don't lose them, and we'll put them, attach them to the Squier itself, because that's the only bits hanging around at the moment. And then I think the rest of the evening's fun will be dedicated to cosmoses. These old things. Alright, see you later. It's almost too hot, so I thought I'd take a break and do some work. Now, what I have here is the Squier Affinity Telecaster, which I did a couple of little test repairs to. One is there, don't know how well you can see that. It's smooth, it's flat, it's, you know, it's in flush with everything else, but you can still see it. And then there's one on the back here which is the same. Again, no more is going to come away from there, it's kind of sealed off and blended in. You can see it lightens it very slightly around there where you do a bit of sanding and stuff, but it's just interesting. I like to test or try and learn the technique, so I don't mind. I don't normally, I guess the point is that normally I'd quite happily play the guitar with the dings in it. I don't really care about the cosmetic side of things too much. I'm not precious about that, but since I have the techniques or the materials, the GluBoost stuff, you know, I like to try it out and learn at the same time. Now, just going to basically, as you've probably just already seen, since you'll be watching this possibly in one chunk, everything's leveled, polished out, tweaked, done, everything fixed up and whatevered, and now we're just on into the restring and intonate part of the game. But while I'm at it, I'm just going to make one more point, and this is a bit unfair to make it to you, but because you're probably the converted, as they say. But yet again this morning I had a brief comment. I've had two in the last few days. It's not a lot considering the number of, you know, engaged and supportive, positive, or constructive I should say, not positive, but just constructive comments on YouTube. But anyway, yeah, so I got one of those, a couple of those in the last 2 days that say, this guy's just rambling, blah blah blah, it takes forever to say anything, blah blah blah, blah, that kind of thing. And sometimes when they're really unpleasant, I just delete them or hide them because they don't add anything to anybody. But occasionally I feel when they're sort of, when they sound as much confused as they do abusive, in other words, there's a tone of they don't understand why I'm not snappy in my performance, you know, or I'm not rehearsed, or I don't have a particular concise, edited, fast-paced presentation style. So if I detect that there's genuine sort of I don't get it in them, then I'll respond. And but it always makes me think. And my response in both cases was a version of, well, one of them I explained in full, and the other one I just was a bit sharp, short and sharp. But the bottom line is when these people, they basically spend their good time telling me how, in a sense, I don't meet their expectation of what an informative tutorial, whatever they think this video is. It doesn't meet their expectations, and therefore they're moved to be critical and tell me, you know, either how stupid I am or where I'm going wrong. If they're trying to be at least productive, you know, they tell me I should edit more, or I should prepare more, or I should do X, Y, and Z according to them. And I have to, where I do reply, I tend to say a version of this, and that is, with all respect, friend, I'm not making these videos for your entertainment or for your information first and foremost. So they're not for you. They serve two functions. That's two. One is, and if you're new to this and you're thinking, why is he such a slow poke, you know, blah, blah, why does he dilly-dally so much? So the videos are for two reasons, right? Two very carefully thought out, considered reasons. One is that they show customers of mine exactly what I did on their guitars. Now, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out why that might be attractive to a customer, why they may enjoy it, even if you don't. Okay, they don't care about the length of it. They like to see their guitar being fussed over and take time taken to set it up to the best of my ability. And the second reason is so that the purpose of these videos is to help somebody decide whether they want me to do their guitar or not. Now, in both cases, I tell these critics, and it might be you if you're thinking that right now, before you post something rude and actually very arrogant, I tell my potential critics that in both of those functions, the format I use works perfectly. Okay, and the evidence is that I'm fully subscribed with business. Thank you very much. I've got more at the moment than I can deal with. Thank you. And it comes to me exactly via a variety of channels, but one in particular being YouTube, because I've used the videos exactly as I intended to use them. And so everything's working 100%, thank you very much, the way I intended it to work. And the bit that always really interests me is it's kind of bigger than the point at hand. In other words, I'm not really that bothered about people saying it doesn't work for them. Actually, they don't say that. I tell them it's fine that it doesn't work for them. What bothers me is a bigger issue that I think is always worth thinking about, and that is there's a blinkered arrogance that too many people, and myself in my time, and probably still sometimes I do as well, there's a blinkered arrogance that we approach something assuming that our expectations of it are the correct ones. So these critical people think they watch these videos or come to these videos because in their arrogance they believe that everybody on YouTube makes how-to videos to to present them information for their entertainment stroke consumption. And there's the assumption part of it. They assume, and they don't question their own assumption about it. Now when they come across somebody who isn't doing that, instead of what I think a constructive thing to do would be to challenge their own assumption. Go, wow, this guy's produced 600 videos of this length. Why is he doing that? Is it because he's a complete asshole, or is it because he's getting something from it that I don't quite understand with my view frame? They don't do that. They just decide that they're right and you're wrong, and then they begin. Their first utterance comes from that point of view, and it's an incredibly powerful thing that people do, and they keep on doing it. But it is really an extreme arrogance, and I don't mean that to start a fight with them, but I do gently suggest that instead of assuming that you're right and this format is broken, because it doesn't meet your expectations, therefore you assume that it's wrong, I'm wrong, right? Why not consider, just entertain the possibility that I keep doing it this way because it works, right? And if it works, it doesn't matter what you think of it. In fact, if you even proceed, if you even conduct yourself from the position that I should stop doing what works for me because you think it's wrong, that is a complete insanity, and it's an arrogance born of immaturity. And that's what I keep seeing with these comments. Now, the point is, it's a long-winded old thing to respond to, and you could be there forever explaining this, and occasionally I do, but the problem is it only sits in one video stream, in the comments of one video, and technically you'd have to post it everywhere to fix the world. But I really do honestly encourage you, but the other thing that when you come from that arrogant, uncritical point of view, where your assumption rules, your blind unconscious assumption rules, you're right, therefore everyone else is wrong, or in this case, if this format doesn't meet your approval, it means it's wrong, not your expectation. The cost of that is much bigger than your inability to make a constructive comment on YouTube, and the consequences that come from that, which I think are still pretty substantial actually. You've become the person who just gets into arguments all the time because you're always so arrogant and so right. Your understanding of the world is the only one that applies. And guess what? You'll notice that every thread you comment in, you'll just piss people off because you don't have any flexibility of mind. You can't broaden your view frame and consider what the evidence is telling you. That, wait a minute, that guy is happy, he's got loads of positive supporters, he's got 7,000 subscribers or whatever it is. He seems to be busy all the time. There's the evidence, friends. No, but you don't see that. You see your point of view, which is this is shit, therefore I'm right, therefore it's shit. And I guarantee you that will dictate how your life works as well, if you're that kind of person. And I know it because I would deal that way. I would deal with people that way too, until I learned better. Anyway, so it's just one of those things that I think it is important enough to mention it. Especially if we're spending 7 hours together. Not in this one, this is an easy one, but right down to that thing of, oh God, what are you going to talk about for 7 hours? What a guitar. Whatever I want to talk about for 7 hours, like whatever you and your friend would talk about if you went sailing together for 7 hours. You wouldn't plan it, and you wouldn't have a little thing of, that's not talkable, that's too pathetic, that's not finished and prepared enough. You just spend 7 hours together. Anyway, so the point is, like I said, I keep having to sort of explain this, and I wish I didn't have to, but actually the reason I do isn't just a personal thing. I don't really give a, I mean, I try to say politely, I don't really care if you're somebody who's watching this and you hate my style, or you hate spending this much time, you know, because the fool is you for watching it and then writing a complaint, you know. If you don't like this format, be empowered and sod off somewhere else. That's absolutely fine. I don't, no hard feelings from my perspective. I didn't make this video for you, remember? But if, you know, if you are somebody who comments, you know, gets your little rocks off by being better than, you know, knowing better, and then slapping someone down with their, hey, why do I have to listen to your unformed thoughts, and you're so unprepared and I'm so much better at focus than you. If that's where you get your rocks off, well, this message is for you, because you do need to learn something about being a little bit less immature, a bit more mature, and a bit less arrogant and blinkered, right? 700 or so videos, more customers than I can deal with. Great satisfaction in doing what I do. Lots of really supportive, friendly supporters who've gained loads from what I do. You know, 7,000 subscribers, 1,100 and something Facebook followers. Loads of people buying my ebook at a huge price for ebooks. Okay, so this works, what I'm doing. But you come into that world with your childlike arrogance, your juvenile arrogance, and all you can do in the face of that evidence is make some sort of comment to prove that you're right. So if you are that person watching this, take a big step and grow up enough to let that advice in. If you recognise yourself in what I've just said, be big enough, grow a chunk, and recognise that that's you, and start not doing that, and see how it changes the way you interact and relate to people online. I promise you, it would absolutely transform how you get on. It'd make the world and your world a lot more rewarding. If you're not that kind of person, and you understand this already, then you'll understand why I'm making a point about it, because it is more than just whether you comment critically or rudely on a video about guitars. It's not about that. It's about what's wrong in this world today, and it is hugely relevant to this inability to look at the evidence, you know, and instead you just stick with what you believe. You believe that videos should be edited and short and to the point, and they should meet your expectations, right? Because you are all important, like a 3-year-old, no, not even 3, like a what is it, a 9-month-old baby. You are the centre of the universe, Donald Trump, and everything should meet your expectations, and when it doesn't, everything else is wrong, not you. You know, that's so juvenile, and that's what's wrong in our world today, I'm afraid. Too many people around 20-30 years old still like that, and that's why YouTube degenerates, I'm afraid, to war. Now, just on the subject of guitars, this is superb. This is utterly brilliant. So I don't give a shit if you think my videos should be longer or shorter, my dear critical friend. They're not for you. This video is for the person who is either buying this guitar, that might be you, Robbie, and or it's for somebody else who's looking at this saying, hey, I've got one of those affinities, can this guy maybe fix the ding on the back, or can this guy make it play? Let me tell you what the action is like on this now. You will not believe this. Well, it's a 12-inch radius, so you might believe it. What? 1.3 millimeters and 1. Beautiful. How about that? Ready to go. Just have to check the intonation, and we are out of the door. And this, as well, you know, this is a quality instrument. I would be more than happy to keep this. I can't afford to keep any more new guitars, well, any more guitars. because I only bought this to sell. But, sorry, I bought it to set it up and sell. But it is fantastic. But I would like to keep it. There's naught wrong with this, but you know, it took the fret leveling and the setup part of things to get it to where I wanted it to be, like all things. So let's do the intonation while we're here, because then I can take this outside. Big Stevie, I'm using the Brian May strap, which actually is currently set way too low for me, so I might need to make an adjustment or two. While I'm here, let's get the famous phone. Right. Just been talking to Adam about his 12 string, just letting him know that that's going to be in courier, or picked up by the courier tomorrow. Book it tonight and pack it tonight, and that's going to be heading off ready for Wednesday pickup. Wednesday collection, I should say. Delivery, not collection. Okay, so sharp and telecastery. This bridge is quite high. It's set to give a big boost when you put it back to the bridge pickup 4. I don't know. You'd think lead work, but who knows. Fraction too long, so let's get that shortened a bit. Counterclockwise and push, counterclockwise and push, and then I'll do the same with the G, because I suspect that will be similar. Very close. Slightly long. No, short. Pull it back a tad. Biggest of bends, I'm going to raise that action a tiny microfraction here. Let's have a look. Yeah, that's right. That's not even showing. It's the same height. Let's do this. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right. That's right, that's right. Down a bit. Down a bit. Down a tiny bit. Right. Now 1mm at the top E on a Telecaster is probably a bit too low. I mean, meaning we've got some leeway. Leave it there, that's fine. That's brutally low anyway, but beautiful. These frets are not the tallest in the world to begin with. But it's very light. Love it. Very light, very easy to play. So there we have it. Squier Affinity Telecaster. Picked up from Mark in Cornwall. Nice low price, which means I can do my work on it and still sell it for about the same, if not less, than some others would sell one in this condition. Or yeah, so I don't know. I guess this would be about 160 quid, something like that, plus postage. But that's a beautiful low action, easy to play, no cracks, tiny ding or two of them repaired, a couple of them just dabbed with paint, but a beautiful looking thing, as you can see. Set up with tens, Tusq string tree, stupid phones making noises. Turn that off. Yeah, there you go. So thanks for watching that. See you again for another one.